I was 5 years old when the shadow people started visiting me. At first, they'd just stand in the corner of the room while I slept and watch over me. The gray people make your body freeze while they're there. You can only move your eyes to stare at them. Other than that, you're frozen in pure terror. I told my parents about the shadow people when they first showed up, but of course they wrote it off as a jacket hanging on a doorknob or a shadow caused by the drapes. They told me to pray and it would go away. I tried this for years, but the thing is, you can't move your mouth when the shadow people are there. I whispered a prayer through my lips and shut my eyes, but I would still know it was across the room staring at me. I started having night terrors in 4th grade. My parents had split up and I lived on a farm out in the hills. My 4 brothers and I slept in our mom's cousin's basement. I would wake up in the middle of the night and be frozen. I didn't see the shadow people here because I had a top bunk, but I could feel their ominous presence. The next year, my mom moved back in with my dad, and I got my own room back. I would lay awake at night in that queen-sized bed and stare at the walls, feeling the gaze upon my back. This went on for a couple of years. As long as I ignored them, it was okay. Then we moved into the slave house. The slave house, as one of my youngest brothers dubbed it, I'm the oldest of 7 kids now, was an old red brick house that a rich white banker had built in the middle of an all-black neighborhood just before the mid-century riots. Apparently, he'd had what the realtor called servants. My brothers called it the slave house, however, because of the people they saw running around their bedrooms at night. The shadows would run up the slave stairs and into their rooms and back all night. You see, this house had a strange layout. The upstairs was where the master had stayed. He had his bedroom and a separate bathroom, and then down the hallway, there was a door with a lock on the wrong side. He'd had the ability to lock his slaves into their side of the house. They could access the kitchen and the washroom downstairs, but all the doors on the slave side of the house that led outside required a key to unlock the deadbolt from the inside. The brother, just younger than me, and I had our beds where the master's children had slept downstairs. We too were able to lock a door to the slave side of the house. It was in this room that I had my first close encounter with a shadow person. I woke up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason and turned away from the wall to look around the room. I froze. Standing at the side of my bed was a gray shadow person with the most frightening face. I'd never seen the face of one up close before. They normally stood in the shadows where their faces were obscured. They talk about fear of the unknown being the most scary, but no. This face was pure horror. Its twisted features were evil. It feasted on my fear as I lay there paralyzed. I closed my eyes and waited until I felt the heat of the sun on my eyelids before opening them. I moved away for college and the shadow people disappeared for a while, but not because they were gone. I didn't sleep much most of my first semester. I'd stay up with my girlfriend or watch TV. I'd found that if I fell asleep when I wasn't trying, I didn't see the shadow people. I started drinking Monster at night so I'd be able to stay up multiple days in a row. Finals came up and I figured I should get some sleep. I called my girlfriend up and had her on speaker on my phone all night. I woke up about 3:30 that morning to a rattling noise. I was frozen, but I got words out to my girlfriend, waking her on the other end of the line. "They're back." "They aren't real, baby. You'll be okay." "They are real." I could hear the rattling on the floor. They were down there. The rattling got louder as I got more scared, frozen on my bed. "Can you not hear that?" "Hear what?" I could barely hear her voice over the rattling. My girlfriend talked me down and the rattling subsided. I took deep breaths to calm my nerves. We moved in together, and I didn't see the gray shadow people for years. Even when she went away for work, I never saw them. I could feel their presence, but I never had to bear their awful faces. And then one day, I was taking a bath and I fell asleep. I felt like I left my body. I could see my body below me in the tub, face submerged. Beside me, one of the gray people stood with scissors. I looked down and a string connected me to my body. He was trying to cut it. I jumped back into my body and flung my head out of the water, gasping for breath. I haven't seen the gray people since. Though they are the most terrifying things in the world, part of me wants to be able to relive that terror. Guess I'm twisted. So this happened last year in Virginia, and is also the reason I never backpack alone anymore. I was taking summer courses at the time, and we ended up with a 3-day weekend in June, so I thought it was a great time to go explore some of the Virginian wilderness and all. I did a Google search and found a state park with a trail that looked nice, and let my roommate and family know the trail I was going to be on. When I got close to the park area, I saw a little outdoor shop where people hiking the Appalachian Trail stopped. I went in to grab a map of the area just in case I got lost. As I was talking to the owner, he mentioned a trail that's not well known, that has a pretty cool waterfall and swimming hole. This piqued my interest, so I had him show me on the map. He took me outside the state park, but he said it was a great place to go. I paid for the map and thanked the owner. I texted my roommate and parents about the new trail, and I parked my car and set off on my adventure. I should note that the waterfall was going to be a side trip for my journey. I was planning 3 days and 2 nights. I started on part of the Appalachian Trail, and it was pretty packed with people, and some of them were really fun to talk to. As expected, as I got further and further from the main trails, I saw less and less people. Around early afternoon, 3 miles from my destination, I noticed it was unnaturally silent. No birds, no bugs, not even wind, and I had a feeling of being watched. I shook it off as me overanalyzing the situation. I got to the waterfall and it wasn't too spectacular, but it was cool to look at. Plus it had a good-sized area to swim in, so naturally, I stripped down to my skivvies and took a dip. It was pretty refreshing. As I was getting my clothes back on, I started whistling to myself. It was Chill Bill because it was stuck in my head. That's when I heard something whistle the same tune back. I thought it was a bird copying me, so I went back and forth with it, and it'll repeat whatever I whistled. I thought it was pretty neat. As I was setting up camp, I couldn't shake this feeling that I was being watched again, like I'd get goosebumps and my hairs would stand up. As night fell, I built a small fire and lit my jet boil to make dinner. As I did this, I became hyper-aware that again, there was no sound, just deafening silence. Some part of my brain was telling me that I'm not safe and to leave. I ignored it and crawled into my tent with my flashlight and book. I went to sleep without incident. When I woke up the next morning, my site was trashed. My camp stool was nowhere to be found. My bear bag with my food was cut down, and the contents were thrown across the site. My first thought was a crafty animal chewed through the rope and got at the bag, but I looked at the rope and it was cut with something very sharp. Plus none of the food was even touched. I also noticed bare footprints all around my campsite. Keep in mind I'm at least 6 to 8 miles from a road. As I was looking at the mess, I heard a branch snap off in the distance. I turned to look in that direction. I saw nothing, but I heard that whistle again. My whistle from yesterday, but it was different. It sounded more sinister. It made my hair stand on end, and this is when I listened to my instincts to get the hell out. It sounded like it was a little off in the distance, so I packed up my camp as fast as I could. The whistling got closer as I finished stuffing the tent into my bag. I didn't bother with putting anything away properly. The whistling was incessant and sounded like it was coming from all directions. I got fed up with the whistling, stood, and yelled into the woods, "Shut up! And what the fuck do you want?" It stopped whistling and it was quiet for a moment. Then it repeated what I said in my voice. It sounded just like me, but distorted like it came from an old TV. After I heard this, I immediately threw my pack on and ran the direction I came. I heard it moving just behind me fast, switching between the whistle and my voice. It felt like it was toying with me, not coming too close but not being too far. Eventually, it sounded like it got further and further away from me. Then it stopped suddenly. When it stopped, I stopped and turned around. I wish I didn't because I heard the most bone-chilling screech ever coming from right next to me. That's when I started running again. I didn't look, I only ran. Less than a half mile, I ran into a couple that was also backpacking. They saw the look of terror in my face and asked if that was me that screamed and asked if I was okay. I told them about what happened and they decided not to go down where I just came from. We moved to a more populated trail as quickly as we could. As soon as I got back in my car, I drove to one of the park's ranger stations and reported what happened. Since the site was off park grounds, they told me it wasn't in their jurisdiction, but they'll send a ranger to investigate. The ranger station's parking lot ran right up to the woods, and when I was getting into my Jeep, I heard the Chill Bill tune coming from the woods just in front of me. I never drove so fast in my life. When I told my roommate why I was back after only one night, all he said was, "Bro, I'm never going camping with you."